you live long enough, you do this long enough, you'll see just about anything. And yes, the Lee County GOP Lincoln-Reagan dinner wrapped up about an hour ago. And the former president talked for about an hour before making a rather brisk escape. But before he went to the airport, he did make this stop in downtown Fort Myers. And this was his visit to downtown House of Pizza. Stunning, a packed restaurant and crowd, a street really full of workers and customers in the middle of a busy Friday night shift where people are there just getting their slices and some whole pizzas. The former president stopped, he shook hands, even ate a slice in front of people with hands out, phones out after about 10 minutes of this, because even hours before his speech, his campaign team put out a scathing assessment of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and his 4+ years in office in Tallahassee. And the former president criticizing DeSantis on so much economically, especially talking about the impact of inflation, affordable housing issues, cost of living in Florida, as well as other issues that weren't even related to economics, really questioning just his impact on the state.
Hello and welcome back to Why Are We Like This, the only true crime podcast that treats Florida like the active crime scene it is. I'm your host, David Quinones, and I'm joined by my co-host as well, Tomas Kennedy. Tomas, what's up, man?
I'm just excited to be here with a fellow poster, a fellow traveler, Ryan Ray, from the other end of the Sunshine State.
You can't keep a good poster down. And we will get to Ryan in one moment, but before we do, let's not forget our other co-host, Gerald Doherty. Gerald, what's up, man?
I'll tell you what's up. Nick's up in 5. Heat going down. We're going to flood downtown with the tears of Brickell residents. I'm sorry to break the news early, but you do come here to learn.
So your official pick is Knicks in 5.
Knicks in 5.
Knicks in 5. I like that. People who are familiar with me know that I have some complicated allegiances. I have a lot of friends at the Miami Heat, but you know what? You are what you were born with, and I was born in the shadow of Madison Square Garden, so you know. That's
you're a Knicks fan too. Okay, so I actually hate the Heat. We might actually lose some followers.
Yeah.
Some listeners ago. So
brilliant marketing by us.
I fucking hate the Heat from the days of of LeBron, Wade, and Bosh.
Yeah,
I just felt like so many people were like bandwagoning on that shit.
It was a lot of dick riding in those days. Yeah,
so much. I just find it fucking distasteful, and I've never been able to shake it. So I'm not with the Heat, man. Fuck the Heat.
So I had mentioned a moment ago that this is our first recording ever since the great realignment on Twitter, and that I was kind of the Robert Pattinson of our group in Good Times, with Jerry and Thomas playing the part of the Buddy Duress character, asking me if I thought my blue checkmark makes me better than them, and I would always respond, I am better than you. So now we are all on equal ground. Officially. Have you guys noticed anything like on the site? It seems
as miserable as they ever were. It's exactly the same to me.
I will say this. I think honestly with the Elon, I hate Elon Musk. Obviously, I've not like been able to tell any difference on the Twitter.com machine, but I will say with the elimination of the blue checks and the Twitter blue, it is kind of funny that like I don't know, like Collie 08974 will be like the first reply,
the first shit that you see.
And King, you know what I mean? So,
and then you hover over it and it's like they have like 19 followers and they created the account yesterday or something.
Yeah, it's some like it's either a bot or some like Twitter blue boomer complaining about their like nieces like gender studies classes, or like some bot like calling you broke for not giving Elon Musk $8. But aside from that, it's the same fucking app. Honestly, it's the same shit.
So it's been a little while since we've had an episode, and they say that there are some decades where nothing happens, and then there are some days where decades happen. And the last few weeks have been filled with those kind of days, I think. And there's a lot to talk about. But first, I want to get to our guest and introduce him. It's somebody who listeners of the show already know. We are joined for the second time, two-time award winner, friend of the show, Ryan Ray, who is an aide to Tallahassee Commissioner Jeremy Matlow, and who's going to have a conversation with us today, catching up on all that news and some of the notes from the week that was. Ryan has made the classic life mistake of becoming a podcaster. He's launching his own show, which we urge all of you to follow. It's called Tropical Depression. You can find it at tropicaldepressionfl.com and on Twitter at TD_FLA. Ryan, can you give us, before we jump into everything, like just a little quick sneak preview of what people can expect on Tropical Depression?
Yeah, you're too kind to mention it. I appreciate it. Yeah, I've gotten into advanced posting 200 podcasting, and it's been great. My first episode, I've honestly been overwhelmed by positive feedback from. I talked to Nate Monroe from the Florida Times Union about the ongoing Jacksonville municipal elections, and it's just kind of helping, like with with y'all, building a discourse about Florida's government and politics that actually makes sense and is connected with the experience of real people, unlike some of the pay for play spin and declining local media that we've been getting otherwise. So super excited about it, and I hope that some of your listeners will consider checking it out.
Cool. Yeah, check it out, guys. Well, I was going to ask you, because I know it's a pain in the ass when you're like, and just going back to the Twitter thing for a moment, it's a pain in the ass when you're trying to launch a show, because like, where do you get the listeners? How do you get the word out? And there's like an instinct to do paid campaigns. Have any of you guys ever like monitored or been in charge of like a paid social media campaign for one thing or another, where like you had to run promoted tweets? I mean, like maybe for the commissioner or something like that, or for programming at your day job, Gerald. Like, have you guys ever done that? Any of you?
I worked on a campaign, but not for anything paid.
Okay.
I always had to try to grow organically.
Yeah.
The hard way, the old-fashioned way.
So the reason I bring it up is because I just wanted to like. Lost among the Twitter blue fiasco was that I saw that of the few corporate entities remaining still as advertisers, paying advertisers on Twitter, one is Samsung Mobile. And Samsung, huge company, right?
Love their stuff.
Love their stuff. Good, great work. The post is from April 2014, and it's a promoted one it's Samsung, so they put a lot of money behind it. There's no dark side of the moon with the Galaxy S23 Ultra. Capture your night skies and share with us, replying to this thread with hashtag share the epic. This is for their new phone. Elon Musk's Twitter added a fucking community note to this fucking ad, to this paid ad on their platform. Readers added context. Samsung phones digitally fake images taken of the moon to make them appear sharper. So, like, I just thought that was hilarious. Companies being run great when you're just shitting on your advertisers, like in the actual ad itself.
That's kind of based.
I was just gonna say it's hall monitor shit. It's just like, oh, actually, that ad of Serena Williams on the moon. She's not actually on the moon. That's a green screen. Like this, like it's insane.
When Alex Jones says read the documents, he means the community notes on the Samsung ad.
So back into our wheelhouse. I just thought that was funny. I wanted to bring that up really quickly. I love the idea of like trying to make this $20 billion company buying it for $44 billion and then like just cratering its value, and then the few remaining people that are actually paying to be on it just fucking them over. Whatever. This isn't fucking tech talk, but I just thought it was hilarious. Guys, the governors are in Japan. Start posting your pudding, because, well, I guess he's back now, but like one of the main story angles or stories that came out obviously was this. I don't know if it was unscheduled or if it was sort of spur of the moment, but Ron DeSantis going east, young man, and visiting Japan, visiting South Korea, not North Korea, as Politico erroneously reported that he was going to be brave. That would be incredible. Can you guys imagine a sitting Florida governor visiting North Korea?
Finish the summit. Get the summit finished. Get the summit done.
Deep state Ron. This is
But I wanted to get you guys' thoughts. First of all, as we talk about potentially our next president, on this special this kind of like special treatment package of legislation that he's getting. One that is making it where he no longer has to divulge travel records, and the other one where he won't have to, like any other Florida politician running for higher office, give up his seat or vacate his seat in order to run for higher office, which he hasn't even declared for, which he's very loudly let us know that he hasn't declared. I haven't even declared. So I don't know.
I'm not a candidate yet now, am I?
What did it get you guys' thought, Ryan? Beauty Before Age. What do you think of the goings on and the special treatment that our little tiny boy is getting?
Well, it's in keeping with the pattern of the legislators, the Florida's lawmakers, just bending over backwards to facilitate whatever the governor wants, including them and letting him draw their own districts. But it's pretty remarkable. A lot of people thought that this would be a real test of wills between the governor and the legislator. A lot of people thought that they were keeping this in their back pocket. They're designed to run issue as leverage for other things in the budget or elsewise. But obviously, as you can see, there's very little that a Florida lawmaker can do of his own volition, apparently.
T, do you think he's running? Do you think he's going to declare soon? Like, do you have any inside info that you feel comfortable sharing here, or no?
Yeah. So I did a NBC interview today, and the reporter opened up by saying that I confirmed with 4 sources today that Ron DeSantis is announcing for president next week. So you heard it here.
That's right.
On Why Are We Like This? Tropical Depression Scoop. We're scooping NBC.
We're scooping NBC
at 6:30. By the time this episode's ready, they'll scoop us.
The mainstream media.
But yeah, 6:30. Yeah. So I'm sure it's already on Twitter, right? But yeah, so apparently he's announcing next week. And why wouldn't he? Look, the guy's boxed in. If he announces, he's absolutely going to get cucked by Trump. But if he doesn't announce, he looks even more cucked because he looks, like an absolute coward.
Yeah.
So he's got to go through with it now because it'll just be so deflating if he doesn't run.
Do you want to die quickly or slowly? That's his choice. I think he's choosing bravery once again.
But the thing is, and we all know this, but you're Ryan, you worked in politics. The thing is that like Tiny D has like a bunch of consultants and sycophants and leeches around him who are like gassing him up and telling him he's the greatest thing ever and painting all these scenarios that quite frankly unlikely but could happen with him winning the Republican primary nomination. So he does have a cast of palace sycophants who are telling him run. And you know why they do it? Not necessarily because they have his best interests at heart, but because like all political candidates, there are a bunch of parasites who are dependent on the candidate to run so they can make money off of him, as consultants in his campaign.
Yeah, Governor DeSantis has become a cottage industry in a special interest feeding frenzy. I know that there are a lot of people that have relocated from around the country to Tallahassee to take state jobs or to be among the sort of Adam Street apparatus, because you have something that you don't have very often, a kind of once in a generation thing, which is a Southern governor who is running for president that actually has some bit of a chance. So in a way, I think with regard to this stuff, he's kind of a cog in his own machine at this point. I don't think he has any choice.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, Jared, what goes into these these? I'm always fascinated about like why you choose when you choose to announce that you're going. Apart from like the practical filing deadline type situations and stuff like that, and it feels like so anticlimactic when somebody pulls a move like this where they wait, I think, a little bit too long to officially put their hat into the ring.
The time to announce would have been after the midterms, because that was when Trump's, his star had faded very, very, a lot of people were very upset that, and also it wasn't Trump. Trump didn't tell anyone to just like light yourself on fire about Elliot Page's bottom surgery as like a national strategy. Like that was completely, like that was their thing. Like that was a completely like a mistake of their own making. But when like Mastriano and like Blake Masters and like all these candidates like eating Herschel Walker eating shit in a very winnable election, you needed someone to blame. And it's like, well, he's still the titular head of the party, so it must be his fault. The time to make an opportunistic move would have been immediately after the midterms. And I think that DeSantis is proving himself to be not just not Trump minus Trump. He's not even a poor man's Trump, because he's not even good at being opportunistic, because he would have read the room as to when the iron is hot and then struck. Whereas now the iron is freezing cold. Once the indictment came down, that was it. It's over for DeSantis. The primary base thinks that Trump is, like they said, the last thing standing between them and you or whatever. It's over. Like
It's because he has a bunch of hyper online dorks,
Yeah.
like, who are advising him, who are like, they were doing like nerd shit. They were like, "No, wait until after the legislative session so you can tell people that
Your accomplishments.
ban people from going to the bathroom." And no one gives a fuck about that.
Right.
Like Trump is just gonna cook him and like call him like a loser and like pudding boy or whatever. And
Did any of you guys see? Did any of you guys see the Ipsos poll that just came out yesterday that ran? I think it was like 900 likely registered voters nationally, or registered voters and likely voters or whatever nationally, and it put Trump as an independent running in a general against Biden and DeSantis. And I think you guys might have to keep me honest. I might have to put this in the notes, but I believe it was 46 Biden, 21 Ron, and 24 Trump, and then like 5% undecided.
I believe it.
Right.
Just the idea that's, I mean, like, whatever, the numbers are the numbers, but the idea that's discourse. That's like, oh, this is a thing that might happen. Like, and that we should run a fucking poll about the like this thing that by dint of running the poll, it's like you're speaking it into existence. Like, it's like almost like, oh yeah, this is likely. This could happen.
It won't happen because Ron DeSantis is a loser. Like I was talking about this with Ryan in Tallahassee. He reminds me of Scott Walker. Like, he is Scott Walker. Like, and there's even like a food analogy, right? Like, remember when like Scott Walker went out and was like, I eat like a simple ham sandwich.
Oh God,
two pieces of white bread and a slice of ham and cheese
He's a ham
every
guy.
day for lunch for the last 28 years, and people were like, "You're a freak! Like, you're a weirdo! Like, you're the governor of a state, and you've been eating the same fucking sandwich for 30 years." That's
very
alienating
off-putting.
to people. People don't like that, and now you have this guy who's been like a freak eating like the pudding thing, and I was kind of afraid that like the pudding thing was gonna become like the Kofefe thing, you know what I mean? Like, just like cringe.
Yeah.
It's been so good, and as much as I hate Trump, he just has a way of making things
Cuts through it.
stick that are so funny, and it's just like not going away. And again, it's alienating, it's weird, and it's just not likable.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Teflon Don, just eating his taco salad way up in the tower, and
Loving it.
continuing to stack W's.
For real though.
How do you guys, as we see these like fissures happening on the right, like I think there's pretty clearly a type of Ron guy, and then there's like a type of MAGA guy, which we have all known. How are you guys seeing these sort of lines being drawn? Like, what's the difference between the profile of these people, Ryan?
Well, this is provisional. I'm just kind of thinking it out as we speak, but I kind of feel like maybe, Trump is like Bernie and DeSantis is like Elizabeth Warren. It's like, if there's like this narrow kind of overly specialized, like if like people who drive a Prius and went to graduate school, those people are kind of overrepresented in the discourse.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the fan base that you get with DeSantis. And so you see columnists, you see white paper freaks, you see Heritage Foundation
apparatus
fanboys,
people.
that sort of
Yeah.
thing. But notably absent in that coalition is just normal people.
Yeah.
And I don't think that people that go to the Iowa fair or people that are voting in South Carolina have any appetite for what DeSantis has on offer. And I think it's kind of like Tomas said. At the end of the day, the dynamic is Trump is alpha and DeSantis is beta.
Yeah.
And in this universe, with the laws of gravity that are in Republican primaries, there's simply no room. There's no way around them.
Yeah, and I will say this, in terms of like party apparatchiks, the way I'm seeing it, not like the dynamic that it's like more of just like the general electorate, again, just party apparatchiks, elected officials, party officers, like the people who are with DeSantis are the weirdo freaks, like dorks, losers, like people like Thomas Massey, you know what I mean? Who are just like these weirdo ideologues that like, yeah, like you do good in your like little southern state, but like to the rest of the country, you're like a freak. But like for Trump, I feel like it's more of just like the grifter and like the hustler types that are just, you know, trying to be like, all right, like who do I latch onto for power? Like, how do I make my money? How do I get an appointment? You know, like the Carlos Jimenez's. The
Perfect
Rick
example.
Scotts,
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? And because he is the alpha and the center of gravity is around him, and there are a lot more fucking grifters who are opportunists, they're all gravitating towards Trump. If the center of gravity was towards DeSantis, then they would gravitate towards DeSantis, but it's just not. And then again, nobody wants to go to that side of the aisle because it's with all the fucking weirdo losers like Pudding Boy and Thomas Massey. Like no one wants to hang out with those guys.
The parties are better in MAGA world. Like MAGA throws better parties. And
absolutely.
Yeah, as long as you can avoid Matt Gaetz, you know, and putting something in your drink. And if you're under, but you only have to worry about that if you're under like 19. So
perfect example, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like grifter, like you know, performative, like hustlers. You know what I mean? Like those George Santos, right? Like, but they're entertainers, you know. And are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? I'm
sorry. You brought up our favorite non-Florida politician, George. I was calling George DeSantos. George Santos.
They got a nod from the AFL-CIO, called him king on a tweet because
that's why I want to bring this up. Okay, the context of what Tomas is talking about is that George Santos was signed up. Like I imagine, almost every legislator gets signed up for like dozens, if not hundreds, of like special interest newsletters, and he got one from what's the name of the actual organization, Tomas?
It's a National Right to Work Association or some shit like that.
Right. So look, you're listening to a podcast about Florida and about why we are the way that we are, and it's important probably to talk about. You might not know what right to work is. Right to work is a code word that's been a code phrase that's been used, I think, for about 25 years now to push through anti-labor legislation, like just a whole raft of, usually they call them right to work laws, across, I think, like 37 states now are right to work states. It just makes it where like your boss can just bend you over and fuck you as hard as he wants. And my contention, Tomas, is he didn't understand what the fuck that thing was. He saw something, National Right to Work organization, and he thought that it was some socialist shit, and that's why he was ripping it up in his video. But I don't know. I wanted to get a straw poll from you guys and see what you think.
Fuck this. He's anti-work, baby. He's
work sucks.
Scared of being lazy, baby. I don't know. I mean, all jokes aside, all George Santos jokes aside, I'm like, why would the AFL-CIO do this? You know what I mean? Like,
I did not know that they did that. That's news to me.
There is such a thing as being two-based, and that was it.
Jared, do you think he knew? I mean, come on.
I think that he's trying to he clearly is trying to like suss out where in Magaland he can land. Like he was like punching at like some CNN anchor or whatever as like a way to like gain clout. There is this weird like Warren Cass strain that like Rubio pushes, where like labor unions are part of a civic society. Basically, it's like we can get church attendance up if we can get union membership up, because then people will rediscover like.
Right, because then it's the place to be. Then it's like the union, because the union hall becomes a place to be or whatever, you know?
Right. Like, I just think this is him trying out a new outfit to see if it fits. Like, I really do think this is him just like, let's just see. I don't know. I'll rip up the paper and I'll like you said, I'll plead ignorance if I read it wrong.
And I will say that, I mean, you could be right, David, but there is like a large union density in his district.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah,
I like to remind people, it is literally where The Great Gatsby takes place, is in that district.
Yeah, that's it includes, I believe it includes, we've talked about this before on the show, but it includes my hometown, Smithtown, and Comac, and yeah, so like it is not it's true. That's true. Maybe this is the one way in which he's actually based. From Ron DeSantis's national and international now errors, foibles, miscues, and mistakes onto his errors and miscues and mistakes closer to home. The Disney lawsuit is again, so much shit has happened since the last time we talked. This is from a recent AP story from, I believe, yesterday. We're recording on Wednesday. I'm sorry, on Thursday. So this is from Wednesday. Disney sued with the Tallahassee, right in your backyard there, Ryan, Tallahassee Dateline. Disney sued Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Wednesday over the Republicans' takeover of its theme park district, alleging that the governor waged a targeted campaign of government retaliation after the company opposed a law critics call Don't Say Gay. The lawsuit was filed in Tallahassee minutes after a Disney World Oversight Board appointed by DeSantis voted to void a deal that the company authority over design that gave the company authority over design and construction decisions in its sprawling properties near Orlando. Disney, the quote from the case on the part of the plaintiff, Disney is Disney regrets that it has come to this, but having exhausted efforts to seek a resolution, the company is left with no choice but to file this lawsuit to protect its cast members, guests, and local development partners from a relentless campaign to weaponize government power against Disney in retaliation for expressing a political viewpoint unpopular with certain state officials. I know we've been talking about this for a while. Tomas, does this like amp things up? The fact that there's now like an actual lawsuit, there's something has been filed. I mean, this has mostly been a war of words and like legislative aggression. Does this change things?
So, I mean, yes, but so I actually wanted to kind of veer this question a little bit because this is actually more interesting than people realize. I spoke with several lawyers that basically, one planted the idea in my head and I confirmed with others. But Disney's lawsuit is actually predicated upon the First Amendment rights of Disney World as a company and corporation. And if we go back and we remember the Citizens United, Supreme Court decision that is basically like polluted and destroyed our political process due to the unfettered influence of big money in elections. That was basically the argument, right? That corporations and companies had a First Amendment right to basically involve themselves in elections, both through speech and through finances. So there is a world where if this goes all the way up to the Supreme Court and Ron DeSantis actually wins, it could mean the end of Citizens United. So there's just like a lot of interesting scenarios, and it's actually like, just to be completely frank, not black and white,
right?
In terms of just like a large behemoth company like Disney World that exploits its workers and that it donates hundreds of millions of dollars to politicians, and influence the political process. They should have some restrictions. That being said, yeah, of course, what Ron DeSantis is doing is absolutely retaliation and using the state as a blunt instrument to basically punish a company that sent out a very carefully worded and mild press release saying that we support LGBTQ rights. But I think what the company is saying is true. It seems like they really did. We're trying to avoid this outcome. They
didn't want this.
It out for over a year. They took every single recourse they did, and eventually they were like, all right, fuck it, we'll sue you, and you're gonna have to face our team of 75
Harvard trained fucking
$10,000 an hour
Doberman lawyers.
Happens, we can go toe to toe with our incompetent fucking like state lawyers that keep getting owned in federal court here in North Florida. We'll see how that goes.
It's such a complicated bank shot to like the way that you described that to us over our chat, Tomas, when you were, I realized what the legal theory behind it would be, but it's just like this weird bedfellows situation where you're like, so I'm fucking rooting for the main like economic driver of Central Florida to lose to one of the worst governors ever because it might actually make the country better. It's like it's very, very.
I'm not rooting for anyone. I want them to just keep fighting. I think it's very damaging to Ron DeSantis. So I'm glad it's happening. But no, I'm not rooting for anyone here because again, Disney is not a good actor. Like
No.
they exploit their workers. They're constantly fighting their union. Their cruise lines are horrendous to like the islands and the countries that they operate in. They have given hundreds of millions of dollars to the Republican Party of Florida and these racist, xenophobic, anti-worker Republican politicians in the state, and they're just a horrible actors. So I'm not rooting for them. Fuck them.
Yeah.
But I am not rooting for Ron DeSantis either because fuck him.
It could be. It could be, though, to your point, it could be like a major sort of horseshoe realignment.
I mean,
I think so.
and Tomas is right though. Like, fuck Disney. Like, that's just a problem that I have with a lot of liberals, where they like become like these like weirdly fanatical about organizations, groups, or individuals that are enemies of their enemies. And Disney's not an enemy of Ron DeSantis because of you.
They're donors of Ron DeSantis.
Yeah,
that's just fine. Like they're major contributors to the party.
Sure.
Yeah. They would like to present themselves as this like a lot of those companies that like donate to, like, for example, with the Dobbs decision, a lot of companies that were offering women like, oh, we'll pay if you need an abortion, we'll pay to send you to a state where you can have one if you live in one that doesn't, if you work for us. A lot of those firms donated to the same politicians that appointed these judges in the first place. Like, it's not like, they want to, they support the Republicans when it's in the interest of their pockets, and then when it comes time for PR, suddenly they're there to play the rainbow capitalist angle. But they're just going to do what's best for them. Disney's not your friend, to your point.
No, not at all.
Just because they made Mufasa gay doesn't mean that you need to
Mufasa was always gay, David.
Last
That's low hanging fruit.
Last year, I got kicked out of another Ron DeSantis press conference in Miami-Dade College, and I did ask the question. Of course, I got kicked out because it's a question that your average Florida press corps member would not have asked.
Never ask, yeah.
But I was like, my question was, the governor has, had signed into the budget, basically over $500 million worth of corporate tax giveaways, and within that, they basically last year gave over $10 million. Last year, 2022, they gave over $10 million in corporate tax giveaways to Walt Disney World.
Yeah,
and this is while the Reedy Creek shit was happening, while the whole this whole war was festering, and happening. My question was like, so why the fuck are you giving this company tens of millions of dollars, in tax breaks now?
Yeah.
And it's because DeSantis knows that this is all just posturing for the primary election, and Disney also knows that like they're gonna be here, they're the gorilla in the room, and they're going to outlive Ron DeSantis. You know what I mean?
They'll be here long after he's.
Their team of 100 corporate lawyers are going to, weather this, and they will be okay. They will be okay.
Look, if you are a fan of Disney, and I don't know if you like their intellectual property and all the fucking movies and stuff like that, great. But I would urge you the next time that you're in Orlando and visiting, drive around not Reedy Creek, but like Kissimmee. Drive around like the area between the airport and the parks. You're gonna see all these like little dotted motels, really shabby, barely livable places. And guess what? You know who's living in there? The employees of Disney. A lot of the people who work at Disney and who make substandard living, who that $10 million, all that money that they have that they throw around, it doesn't find its way to them. And the standard of living for the Disney employees is dog shit. And it is like an economic suck. I know that it helps a lot. I know that it brings a lot of money in, but that money stays right in fucking Bob Iger's pocket. It doesn't get redistributed. It doesn't trickle down to the larger Central Florida, economy. So, or the Florida economy. So,
and to be clear, like that's our case against Disney.
Yeah.
Ron DeSantis' case is that they
that is not his critique.
They gave the thumbs up to gay, and that's why he's going after them. And those are two different cases. There's a lot of people I think who try to muddle the two. Tucker Carlson, I'd say most famously, like to muddle the two, like this was some kind of populist crusade that DeSantis was going on against the powerful. But it's only when the powerful say something pro-LGBT or
Yeah.
what have you.
Yeah, you know what? If Ron DeSantis wants to stand up against Disney World, you know what he could do? He could fucking go stand with like union workers while they were like renegotiating like one of their contracts,
Yep.
which just was happening a couple of weeks ago. Or he could push for like combined like reporting, or strip away their like tax breaks, or like have handled the whole Reedy Creek episode in a responsible way, and instead of having it have made it about the company trying to be pro LGBTQ, which by the way is a good thing. Like we like that here in this podcast. We're not against that, but he could have been like, hey, aside from all that, and without that being a factor in him doing that, he could have called a press conference and be like, hey, you know what? Might be a little ridiculous that Disney World gets to have its own town and have this much leeway and have this much authority. We are going to commission a study to see what the impacts of getting rid of this, and we're going to start exploring taking back this responsibility for this area. But like, you do that responsibly.
There's a populist way for him to do that. He could stay being Mr. Ron DeSantis populist guy and do exactly what you're saying. It's a choice to make it be about hating people and marginalizing people and wanting to like fiddle with children's genitalia. Like it's a choice to do that.
Yeah, but I do understand the liberal like reflex to be pro Disney, and don't get me wrong, like I don't want like fascists like Ron DeSantis using the state as a blunt instrument to basically force companies and small businesses and whoever force them to remain silent and not take positions on good things or whatever. Like I don't want to live in that country either, but at the same time, like we have to remain realistic on what Disney is and what they stand for and what they do to their workers and what they do to our political system and elections. When
it comes to Governor DeSantis, that the call is coming from inside the corporate kingdom, no doubt.
Ryan, have you seen has all of this imbroglio, like this long running feud, affected Disney's like pull and its influence in the Capitol? I know you don't work in the Capitol, but like in Tallahassee, I know that they're like an ever-present figure up there. Like it's like Tallahassee, the state of Florida, brought to you by Disney, and it's like. So, have you seen like even more divisiveness amongst like people that you interact with? Like how has this been received in Tallahassee?
Definitely, it's triggered a realignment of some in many ways. So I would say that there's an article of faith up here in the sort of in the insular press corps sort of circles that the mouse never loses, right? Like Disney is on every side of every issue, and there's no way around them. They always win. And I'd say that there's a lot of sympathy from outsiders and liberals, people who didn't think that they would love a big ESPN, big national union busting company that has basically a company town and has tens of thousands of workers that live in substandard housing and that sort of thing. So you've got that. Then I think you saw, as it looked like DeSantis was going to, basically everyone was really imagining a world where we're thinking about President Ron DeSantis. Everyone began to think, oh boy, is the basis of my gravity is the special interest Adam Street lock solid view that Disney runs everything challenge now. And I think that in the last few weeks, or maybe just only the last couple of weeks, as DeSantis's run for president sort of seems to be slipping around his ankles, I think we're getting back down to reality of, okay, well, ultimately, like Tomas said, in the era of term limits, in the era of Tallahassee flashes in the pan, that Disney is going to be eternal and they'll always be around. And I think now it's kind of devolving into a place where most people just say, he was kind of flogging this really powerful company as a power move for his national ascendancy. And now I'd say it looks like it's kind of just becoming like a petty, nasty grudge from a loser who's kind of getting his vendetta on the way out of relevance.
Yeah, you nailed it. Again, going back to what we were discussing earlier, it's exactly what Ryan said. Before it was like a tit for tat, and whatever. You could see he's just trying to play the populist angle, and now it's like, dude, like, you look weird, like you look like a fucking loser, like you look obsessed, like it just looks, you look like a freak.
It looks
like,
lame. It looks so lame.
Take the L and move the fuck on, because you look weird. And again, people don't like that. At the end of the day, for your average person that's not as like psychotically involved in politics as we are, or the people we know, like Disney, like it's just a company that their kids, like to watch on Disney Plus, and they remember the fucking movies from when they're a kid, and whether you're like center left or center right, you might like them, you might have some gripes with them, but after a while, you're kind of like, damn, that guy from Florida is just fucking weird. Like, what's wrong with that guy?
The only like thing that the only like comparable that I have in my head, this might be like a little, I don't know, like I don't know if you guys remember this or not, but if Twitter had been made 7 years earlier, I think that Donald Trump would not have gotten to the point that he got to, because there was in the early 2000s one of the most embarrassing. It felt like he was taking a loss in this argument. He had like this long public feud with Rosie O'Donnell. Do you guys remember this?
Oh, of course I remember.
Okay,
that
but
was all over the Post, the Daily News,
the Post, Howard Stern. They had updates on it every day on Stern.
Classic.
Yeah.
You know how many Page 5 writers sent their kids to college off that feud alone? Yeah.
Trump looked so weak in that. I mean, like he got some good digs in, but he looked through that whole thing. I remember being like 23 and being like, this guy sounds so fucking lame. I can't believe he's doing this in public and just like letting this happen to him. And it's how, if social media existed back then, it would have been amplified so much. I don't know if he ever would have recovered from how bad that looked. But it feels like this Ron DeSantis thing, where it's like, dude, why don't you stop this? It's pathetic that you're doing this. Don't do this anymore.
I would like to disagree a little bit. It only makes you look bad if you lose.
Yeah.
Like you don't look bad for fighting in politics. You look bad for losing.
Yeah.
And I think DeSantis probably thought he could bully. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but maybe he thought, I can just bully and make an example of the largest single site employer in my state, and that'll make me look like a powerful guy, forgetting that they command vast amounts of resources and, to Bus's point,
and
lawyers,
human capital, and
yeah, you have bitten off more than you can chew, and now they're going to eat you alive in court. And if they win, you look like a loser. If they lose, it deals a blow to the concept of legal corporate personhood. This is a win-win.
And you knock the fucking legs out from a key tenet, a key win of the conservative movement over the last 20 years, Citizens United.
Yeah, and I will say, adding to what Gerald has said, like it's exactly what Gerald said. He has to keep fighting, because if he takes the L, he looks cucked, he looks beta, looks like a loser. Donald Trump just will not let it go. Like, he'll just completely own him over it. So he has to keep fighting. He has to keep digging himself in. It's basically the same dynamic as to why we predict that he will run for president.
Yeah.
Because he looks deflated and super beta if he doesn't run. So he can't back down now. He's in a prison of his own making.
He's going to call Minnie Mouse a nasty woman.
Yeah.
This very nasty rodent.
As I turn it over in my head, David, I think if that spat between Rosie and Donald was going on in social media, it would have turned Rosie into like a temporary like Michael Avenatti figure, where just for opposing Trump, you become part of the resistance. It would have made Rosie, Rosie the Riveter.
Yeah.
Except Rosie would have never gone to jail, and she would have actually become president.
There you go.
Yeah. She would have actually run as a Democrat. God damn, the fucking sliding doors moments that we think of with this shit. If only Tom from MySpace had gotten working a little, maybe just a few years earlier than he did. Knock-on effects. I think that people sometimes think that that things are the way that they are. It feels like Disney has been in, just south of Orlando since time immemorial, but it hasn't been that long. It was only been about like 60 years, right? And so the conversation with this whole spat between the governor and Disney has been one aspect of the conversation, at least, has been could Disney pick up stakes and leave? And I know that that's very unlikely, and it's but stranger things have happened. The Washington football team is called the Commanders today. I don't know if you guys know that. Fucking, I never would have thought, and it fucking happened. Yeah. So things change. DeSantis super PAC lashes out at longshot GOP candidate over Disney pitch. The longshot GOP candidate we're talking about is former South Carolina governor and I think what was she? UN ambassador, right? Under Trump? Mm-hmm. UN ambassador Nikki Haley, who gave as this Daily Beast article calls it, a shameless pitch on Fox News to the Walt Disney Company, suggesting a relocation to her native South Carolina after DeSantis' repeated attacks on the company. Quote, "I'll be happy to meet them," Haley said, before adding, for good measure, that her state is, quote, very anti-woke. And then she also got in a little dig where she said she said she's not being she wouldn't be sanctimonious about having them there.
We're woke, but we're not sanctimonious.
We're woke, but we're not sanctimonious.
Anti-woke.
And then, meanwhile, at the same time, the state of North Carolina has introduced the Freedom for Mickey. What is it called? Yeah, Mickey's Freedom Restoration Act, North Carolina draft legislation from a Democrat in the state legislature, who again wants to try to attract Disney there. Ryan, what would be your choice of a location? Like, what city would you, in the American Southeast would you think would be a good Disney relocation spot, and why?
Well, it makes me. Is Disney going to become climate refugees? Right? They're so far inland.
That's such a dark thought. That's so dark.
and yet here we are. I mean, the Reedy Creek Improvement District and the entire the foundations of Disney in Florida is one of the most, the flow of people into Central and South Florida after World War II is up there with like the partition of India and Pakistan, and in terms of one of the greatest migrations of people ever of all time. And it's like this tailor-made, purpose-built local government, especially for Disney, is one of the kind of, like, I know it's Florida, right? So there's no actual ancient tradition. It's all invented. But as it goes, it's one of the longest standing things in the state, like if that has any sort of critical mass. That being said, I'm going to say Atlanta.
Atlanta. It's already so dense there. But I guess it would give a little more contour to a major, enormous American metropolitan area that.
I'm just always, my Disney adult friends and the people that I see. I say that because I just think that Disney could just use some flavor.
Gerald had another idea for the reason why Atlanta. Tell him, Gerald.
I wanted Goofy at the strip clubs. I want a Kingdom Hearts themed nightclub. I want like maximum silliness.
I think of the old. Do you guys remember the story about Dikembe Mutombo? Who wants to fuck Mutombo? Where he goes, he went into Magic City in Atlanta, and he was like, "Who wants to fuck Mutombo?" And I'm just trying to think of Goofy being like, "Who wants to have a little kiss?"
Of course, Mickey. She's kind of nice with it.
Tomas, where are you moving Disney?
Yeah, I'm gonna say like San Francisco, just because it's just such a place that it would like
rain all the time.
It would just like trigger like not trying to be like resistance about it, but just out of just sheer like triggering like the fucking DeSantis people and like the fucking like conservative like chuds like where like what they see as the biggest dystopian hellhole in America. So move Disney to San Francisco, and I would just love like to see the Twitter discourse about it, or like the Twitter blue check marks, just losing their minds over it. That's definitely my pick.
We're in the ungoverned zone in Seattle among the heroin needles.
Yeah,
the autonomous, the Chaz or the Chad or whatever.
Oh my god, a Disney autonomous zone.
Well, no, but we're joking. But actually, that's a good question. That is a good question because like. The question when you think about Disney relocating and all these like thirsty political adjacent people jumping up and raising their hands, is could they get a better deal or a decent deal, a similar deal where it's like, no, we're gonna like carve out a hunk of land and you just literally operate everything there. Like, you make the laws. You could remember the joke that everybody that came out of like the Reedy Creek, the FOIAs and the Sunshine Laws, where it was like, oh, they could do their own like nuclear proliferation and shit like that. And I don't imagine like a fucking what's his name, Brian Kemp or something like that, even for all the jobs and everything like that, giving just Disney the full run of 2 million acres in Macon County or something like that.
I'm not sure that he'd be willing to give Donald Duck diplomatic immunity.
Wait, does Disneyland in California have like a Reedy Creek situation? Where's that, in Anaheim or whatever?
It's in Anaheim, and I don't know. It's you got to understand though, the Disneyland is a fraction of the size. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's like a fraction of the size. Well, I mean, when I was a little kid, what am I gonna do?
Don't forget though that like giving corporations maximum power and maximum leniency is the bedrock of conservative economic orthodoxy.
Yeah.
So it's almost like they have to keep it gassed by saying, I would love to steal Disney like from DeSantis because that creates jobs. Like, wait, like,
the jobs.
Good. Yeah, this is good actually.
Like the 800,000 jobs that Rick Scott promised in 2010. It was like, well, we're gonna do that.
And beyond Florida Georgia like rivalry, especially when it comes to college football, I think also Brian Kemp would like to get an own in on DeSantis, especially after the whole like election theft whatever, where like Kemp was kind of a persona non grata. Now that he's won re-election, I think this could help. It could help get some more gas in the tank for him, I would say.
Yeah, but isn't this like? Are we missing the forest for the trees, fellas? Isn't this?
I spelled out what the forest was. The forest is Kingdom Hearts nightclub. Goofy in the strip club.
What's the cover to the forest?
There is no forest. There are no trees. There's just imagination.
There is no tree. There is no tree in the champagne room.
That's right.
No, but I was gonna say, because this feels like what the story really is Haley auditioning as vice president, as a VP pick, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think probably Trump called her before she even ran and said like, "Hey, it turns out like every additional non-Trump candidate takes away more from DeSantis than me.
Yeah,
would you mind running? I'll call up Pompeo and ask him to do the same, and we'll get the gang back together. Don't throw any punches at me, but play your part, and I'll make it worth a while."
I think so too. She does feel like a little bit of a sap for like a stalking horse just for Trump, right? But on this topic, I wonder what we think. I just saw this floated for the first time yesterday. What do we think of a DeSantis Trump ticket, right? Maybe this is a lover's quarrel, and it's been floated that we see the ultimate beta position for DeSantis as VP. What do we think?
No.
I mean, it would have to be. Tomas is shaking his head for the viewers at home, or the listeners at home. I just think it would have to be a thing where, and I don't remember when the last time this happened, whether even this was the case. I was too young to know if this was the case with Reagan and Bush, but just the understanding that, okay, I'm up next, I'm in the bullpen. And I remember that also being a conversation. The first time I voted, the first time I was old enough to vote was for Al Gore in 2000. And in the conversation being that, oh, this guy, Dick Cheney, he's terrible, but he's said he's never going to run. So it's the opposite. Like and I had grown up in a world where it was like, oh, the vice president is the guy who's going to run for president next. And that's been upended, kind of, right? I mean, even though we are currently having a president who was the vice president for his party's last president. So I don't know. I mean,
No. It's not going to happen, y'all. Why would Trump doesn't like a guy that's going to upstage him. He wants somebody that's going to shut the fuck up and look, and look pretty like Mike Pence. That's it. Like, you don't want no, and you know who Trump should pick?
Who? Bated breath.
Janet Nunez.
Oh yeah, you said this before. It would be the most like clucked thing that he could possibly do.
alpha, dude. Just destroys DeSantis and then picks his lieutenant governor as the VP pick. And she's like, a Latina woman from, well, he's gonna win Florida either way. But
Yes.
yeah, that's my hot take.
That's a masterpiece. That is a masterpiece. I'm in love with that idea.
Yeah,
I agree with Tomas, but I would also underline that at the national level, the parties are trying to do a tug of war basically over white suburban women who make over a certain amount of income.
Yeah.
I don't know that Ron DeSantis helps you with any of those people, but I think Jeanette, like you said, Jeanette Nunez certainly could.
and I usually invoice for these nuggets. So not trying to give you all any ideas, RPOF or MAGA campaign.
Team
But
MAGA.
Ryan, you and I talked about this. The real, nuclear VP pick for Trump, Byron Donalds, baby. Like if he picks Byron Donalds, it would.
Wait, you got to give guys. You have to give context of who Byron Donalds is in case not everybody knows who that is. Because that's a pretty obscure. I know he had a little bit of national profile in the last couple of weeks, but
he's a congressman from Southwest Florida, who is part of the MAGA world. He was I think one of the first
crucially important to understand a black congressman who is
one of the first members that endorsed Trump. So he's definitely hopping in the bandwagon and lining himself up for something. But yeah, he is black. He's powerful. He and they're lining him up. He was one of the people that were lined up to become governor of Florida.
Yeah.
But again, not trying to give ideas here. David, we should consider editing this out because it's too powerful. But
I'm just going to send an invoice. I mean, Trump is great at not paying invoices, so fuck it.
And you know why Trump would also love this idea? Because it would mean that his first name is part of the ticket. Trump Donald.
Trump Donald.
Oh,
so if his brain would.
That's exactly the way his brain works too. That's exactly
Trump Donald.
Look, it's like my name but backwards. It's the same. They're basically just voting for me. It's basically just me they're voting for.
So yeah, it's too powerful of an idea.
It is. Do you guys think that Donald Trump knows who Byron Donald is? Off the top of his head, would he be oh yeah, the guy from Naples, Florida, or whatever? Or is he?
I'm sure he remembers from the speakership, right? Also, was one of the people that Lauren Boebert and Matt Gaetz were constantly
I don't know, but do you remember when Diamond and Silk? I forgot which one, but one of them died, and then
Diamond died. I think Diamond died, right?
Yeah, and then she was on stage, one of the sister was on stage with him. And he was yeah, I never met Diamond, And
she was a wonderful lady.
You've met her so many times, bro. You met her to the White
There's
House.
There's photos. You can go on Getty and see 1,000 photos of you meeting her, dude.
So I don't know how that man's mind works, actually, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, man. This ended up being a DeSantis episode, man. I think we're going to have a lot of DeSantis episodes over the course.
We'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the teacher that Ryan was, or the superintendent.
Ryan, tell us. Yeah, Jared's right. You had mentioned before we started recording about a little bit of a brewing scandal in your neck of the woods with your school board, right?
Yeah, I mean we're having a DeSantis episode, I think, in the state, and I think the country is having a bit of a DeSantis episode as well. Yeah. Although I don't think it will be picked up for a second season. So just today, this is just hours old. We know that Governor DeSantis has had a troubling, very highly anti-democratic habit of suspending constitutional officers, duly elected local officials, in many cases Broward school board members, and with the state attorney in Hillsborough County, Andrew Warren. These are people that were not accused of any crime and really not even accused of violating any sort of administrative rule. It was really over pretty much a difference of opinion and defying the say-so of the governor. And I think this might be the highest profile edition of this yet. Just today, the Department of Education under Governor DeSantis. Of course, we all know, as South Florida stands here, we all know Manny Diaz. Not that Manny Diaz, the other Manny Diaz.
The other Manny Diaz. Yeah, there's quite a few if you pay attention to Miami.
Republican of academia who has a vested interest in charter schools, former state senator, former education appropriations chair, and now Governor DeSantis is education commissioner.
And former creepy assistant principal, apparently. So he has that in common with, this is like a well-known rumors down here, Ryan. I don't know if you know about that either, but Manny Diaz having some allegations from his time working at, I think it was Aventura High School or American Senior High. I'm not sure. I'll have to fact check myself, but yeah.
Absolutely shocked by that, since he is such a high caliber individual.
Yeah.
But he today was handed down another of these threatening letters saying that he's investigating the Leon County's independently elected supervisor of elections. Now, this is again against the backdrop of Richard Corcoran, now the president of my alma mater, New College, who was the last education commissioner under DeSantis, who is again also a right-wing freak. Notably, my parlor trick is reminding people that he was the chief of staff under Speaker Marco Rubio back in the day. He is now threatened him with basically being investigated. He's under investigation. Rocky Hanna, the Leon County Supervisor of Elections. I'm sorry, but what I was going to say before was the Corcoran removed and basically single-handedly overtook Jefferson County, a small rural county in North Florida. Basically made it a charter county,
right,
and just put a private for-profit or charter organization under state control. It was a horribly, it kind of reminded me of the state of Kansas austerity experiment. Horribly failed.
Terrible. If you guys want to read about that, WLRN's Jessica Bakeman had a great series a couple years ago on what a disaster that was. But I'm sorry, go ahead,
yes,
Ryan.
Please do check out her long form piece, Charter. Jessica is a great friend of mine and a great Floridian. So we've got another aggressive incursion into democratically elected school administrators, where today the state of Florida has said they're investigating Leon County Supervisor of Elections, Rocky Hanna. Rocky Hanna has sparred at times with the state, very understandably, as tens of thousands of employees are basically being spat on by the state government right across the street from where they live. Many of them are underpaid and underappreciated and jerked around and having their flags taken down and having their books hidden, all the other deprivations that we've seen in Florida's public education. But here, basically, for the crime of saying essentially you do you, right, as it relates to, he basically says, hey, as long as you're in compliance with state law, as it relates to the practices in your own classroom, you do you. Mm-hmm. And just kind of having the tiniest fig leaf of human dignity and decency.
How dare he?
And in terms of assurances to his teachers, that has raised the ire of the DeSantis administration, and they have announced that he is under investigation, and it looks like he might be the most recent constitutional officer that's duly elected by the people of Florida to be removed from office, or certainly now threatened from removal from office.
That's wild.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before in the past about how, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Ryan, the way that DeSantis approaches these things, or the larger, what's turning into the DeSantis apparatus of all of these different walks of life, pointing their grim death stare at different individuals. It's always like that. It's if you are the taller blade of grass, even if it's just by a few centimeters, then you get the focus. It's not, none of these policies are meant to be widespread. They're meant to focus on a person like Rocky and be okay, that guy, make sure there's a headline with his name on it tomorrow so that everybody knows. And it really feels like it's that vindictive kind of targeted chilling effect. And we've mentioned this before on the show, actually. Absolutely.
And it's interesting. I think that, people that are in the shadow of the Capitol, like me, I work literally across the street. There was kind of a chilling effect, and we're all imagining President DeSantis and what that means, and him throwing his weight around. Now, it's interesting, just as that kind of spell is breaking and people are kind of saying, Donald Trump is going to handle him, it seems like now this is his newest his newest bullet in the chamber. I think that he's trying to, reassert himself and say, as he turns into a corn cob, I'm not a.
Right. Wait, Ryan, are you there? Did we lose you?
Ryan,
Yeah.
Ryan,
Okay,
your
cool.
audio just got corn.
Your audio cut for just like a second. Sorry. Your audio got corn cobbed for a moment. Yeah.
I want to say for the record, I am not on. But
Ryan, we couldn't hear you.
But yeah, no.
Can you say it louder?
But yeah, no, it's obviously a shame. It's obviously a shame, and as someone who works in local government and cares about local democracy, it's certainly something that is once ridiculous and laughable, but also scary.
Yeah. So what happens now? Like, what will this, I don't know, be adjudicated? I mean, like, how are we gonna, like, what will happen next with respect to that? Do we have to wait for DeSantis to play his hand? And
I assume that the governor will handle the issue judiciously in the public interest, as always.
Beautiful.
You think Rocky will get by the way, what a great name, Rocky Hanna, but do you think he'll get removed?
I think that he'll at least get detention. No, I'm kidding. Sorry to make light. Yes, I think if history is any indication, you look at these Broward school board members who, again, basically just expressed a simple difference of opinion on policy as it relates to COVID and masking and that sort of thing. If you look at Andrew Warren, who I think that's the cleanest issue. A federal judge said you have no basis to do this. There's no law broken. There's no administrative rules broken. I think that if you look at the nasty sort of bitter end, bridge to nowhere, just fighting for its own sake, that you see DeSantis has engaged in now with Disney, who, by the way, I hear that there's likely to be a special session to get down even dirtier into the mud with Disney. Yeah, I mean, I certainly would not bet against him removing this, duly elected superintendent rather of schools.
Another special, that like every time there's like a special session, it's like
it costs money.
It's like easily like $20,000 to $30,000 easily.
Yeah. He doesn't. Tomas. He doesn't seem like he's having a good time doing this shit. Like, why do this? Like, why seem
like he has a good time existing? He looks so aggrieved and like angry and like, at least with Trump, who again I don't like, but like you look at him and there's a lot of times you're like, yeah, this guy's having fun. Like he was in like he was like in Naples or he was like in Fort Myers the other day and he was like surrounded by sycophants and he was like eating this pepperoni pizza and he's like, I just took a bite of this pizza. Anybody want this slice? And people were like trying to get the with DeSantis, it's just like, God, dude, relax. Be comfortable in your own skin a little bit.
I still think that it should just, like, when they were sitting down and having their very first meeting of like, okay, we're going to be a couple of horrible goblins that make the world much worse. Who's going to be the face of it? It should have just been Casey. They should have just made it be Casey instead of him. And he should have been the guy in the background doing all the shit.
I could not agree more.
I have an image in my head because the more removed he gets from Florida, the more weird he's going to seem to other people. Of like him being in Japan and South Korea like as himself, and them explaining like like a lot of like Pacific countries like we wear masks even in non-pandemic years as like a sign of respect. And then he's like, "What's a sign of respect? Is that where you make your students drink too much milk and when you show up to their parties?" And then they say, "No." What time did you say your flight was at again?
How much longer are you here?
Guy. Yeah.
We one thing that we definitely wanted to do before we got off. I know Tomas had the good idea that we've been kind of behind the scenes debating and going back and forth over which of the Trump nicknames for Ron we like the most, and I think we got to put it to bed at this point. Like, where do we fall? Tomas, I'll let you start because I think you feel the strongest about this.
There's so many good ones. I mean, okay, so it's not a simple answer. So there's a lot of hate.
So many splendored thing.
There's a lot of hate towards DeSanctimonious, but again, Ryan and I we're talking about this offline. DeSanctimonious was the opening shot. You know what I mean? DeSanctimonious, in politics, in campaign world, you call it defining your opponent, right?
Yeah.
And he was defining his opponent as some like righteous, better than thou, like know-it-all little bitch, right? Like, so I think as an opening shot, De Sanctimonious was great. I love how he, like, abbreviates this to DeSantis.
DeSantis is one of the funnier ones.
I love Rob. Rob is so dismissive.
It's very Tim Apple. Tim Apple.
So to me, it's between Tiny D or Meatball, but I would like to say Tiny D, but I always like when I do a tweet or I post, I always gravitates towards Meatball more. So Meatball is like just such a perfect image of him that like I will go with Meatball.
Jared, what do you think?
I'm not a fan of. I don't feel like any of the names quite capture it. Like, yes, Ron the Sanctimonious. The reason I don't like it's too long to type out, and that's why he has to.
Gerald's the goddamn guy in the brainstorm who's like, guys, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're there.
I'm sorry for answering questions in an honest fashion. So I'm not a fan of any of the names he's come up with for this cycle, this season. Thus far, I feel like Wannabe Ron is the one that like he eventually has to land on, just because like it hits at he has no juice, like he has nothing.
Has he used that one yet? Has he said that one?
No, that's the thing I think is like in the ether, waiting.
Wannabe.
He had Wannabe De Sanctimonious is very good.
Jared, where are you gonna go? I'm sorry, Ryan, where are you gonna go with it?
Meatball Ron is the gold standard, and I agree with Tomas that originally people thought that Trump had like jumped the shark with De Sanctimonious, but I think actually like history has judged it more kindly. Very recent history, and there's something that's just like supremely dismissive about Rob, because it's
so funny.
Just calling him the wrong name.
Yeah,
that's just. I mean, come on.
That's
like,
always funny.
It's making me smile right now to think of it. But for the purposes of this segment, I'm going to go with Deep State Ron.
Oh yeah, Deep State Ron. An underrated.
Deep State Ron. It just makes him just the pure other. It makes him. He's like I've been draining this swamp before this guy was anything. It's like he's just another little Tempest. He's just another little NPC on my quest, and so I think that I'm gonna go with Deep State Ron.
And it's also hilarious that it's coming from the guy that like hired John Bolton and like Elliot Abrams.
Literally a tool of the deep state. Yeah.
Like it works.
It kind of gestures towards Guantanamo, which is always like it's kind of like Trump's left hook. So yeah.
So look, we're at the top of the hour. We have had our guest for this entire episode, been a good sport, has let us talk to him well into the evening. He's Ryan Ray. He's an aide to Tallahassee Commissioner Jeremy Madlow, newly minted podcast host. I'm so sorry. My condolences. He is heading up the new show, Tropical Depression. You can find him on Twitter, unbossed, unverified, at Ryan Ray _FLA. You can listen to Tropical Depression at tropicaldepressionfl.com or on Twitter at TD_FLA. Links are going to be in the show notes. Ryan, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks. It was great hanging out with you guys.